RadioLiberty.com. Since my microphone won't fit in here, I'll do it this way. Well, first off, it is just buoying, absolutely empowering to be here with so many lovers of liberty. The globalists are scared right now. They have quietly, behind the scenes, built this system of dehumanization and enslavement. But because there were so many great people like Dr. Stan Monteith, going back almost 50 years ago, G. Edward Griffin, Anthony J. Hilder, and so many others, because of them being made fun of, laughed at, ridiculed, but telling the truth about the plan for a tyrannical world government, so many seeds have been planted, and so many other people of the last few generations have been awakened that we are literally catching the technocrats who are filled with hubris and on power trips with their pants down, and we've got a good chance of defeating them. More and more every day I quote the French philosopher Victor Hugo, "No army can stop an idea whose time has come." And the global recognition of the planetary corporate dictatorship has never been on more fire than it is now. It was just 4 months ago that Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the top engineers and global planners of this feudal plantation, addressed the Council on Foreign Relations branch of Canada. And what did he tell them with his voice tremulating, his voice shaking? He said, for the first time in human history, the entire planet is politically awake and aware, I quote, staring the elite in the eyes. Puppet politicians like George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton and George W. Bush and Barack Obama, they come and go. But the puppet masters that pull their strings, they are there, and they are the enemy, and we recognize them, and we know they're waging eugenics Nazi war against us, and the spirit of free humanity is rising to resist them. They have attempted to control our paradigm and keep us in this false system of left, right, Republican, Democrat. But their false paradigm is falling. And as that illusion falls, as that iron curtain of deception burns away, we are staring eye to eye with the psychopathic controllers who have engineered every major war in the last 210 years. The Great Awakening is upon us, and every single one of you, as Mahatma Gandhi said, carries the seed of the universe within your heart. You are the leaders, regardless of race, color, creed, religion, who are now at this historic fork in the road, this crossroads, who will make the decision for the species, for the human race. It is up to you to stand up against their scientific tyranny, to break their code, to realize their system, and to defeat them. I want to speak about who we really are, who we are individually, free humanity, versus who they are, who the controllers are, and the differences between us. Madison Avenue in the last 100 years, in their own public writings, talk about how they try to teach us that we're inadequate, that we're ugly, that we're weak, that we're powerless, so they can fill us full of their lies in the name of supposedly fulfilling us. And they do that because the controllers are fundamentally scared of who you are individually. They are fundamentally scared of the dynamic human spirit that refuses to submit to their dehumanization. The globalists are scared. They are scared because they have engaged in a very wicked decision. The global controllers are highly intelligent, but they have learned the secrets of humanity. They've learned the secrets of our species. They know the potential, and they've decided to hoard that information to themselves and to use it to dominate and control their fellow humans, committing not just a crime against us, but a crime against themselves. And that's why they seek to shutter your psyche, your mind, your intellect, your soul, everything that you're capable of, because they are afraid of you. They know your inherent power. I go back to 1900, 110 years ago. Max Planck, a German physicist, in his mind envisioned equations that developed the atomic theory, envisioned in his mind on a blackboard long before cell phones, long before jet aircraft, before airplanes had even taken to the air. He envisioned equations in his mind that developed nuclear reactors, atomic and hydrogen weapons. He deliberately wrote out the plans for these systems. That's what the establishment is afraid of. We have minds and souls that can literally break the secrets of the universe. We are made in the image of the creator of the entire dimension that we live in and beyond. Humanity is at an embryonic phase, and the global engineers know that, and they seek to stunt humanity, to dumb down humanity, to retard humanity, so it can be easily managed for our extermination, so that the children and the progeny of the global engineers can take to the stars and take part in the destiny of this species. But they are not righteous enough, pure enough, good enough by 1 trillion light years to take control of our destiny. They are greedy, envious scum that must be defeated. The elite, whether it's Europe, China, Latin America, it doesn't matter. The global rulers of this planet are predatory predators who enjoy dehumanizing and murdering and enslaving us. And they tell us that they're the elite. They developed the plan of eugenics out of social Darwinism and social Darwinism, saying they were doing the planet a favor in murdering and killing and dumbing down populations. They are the most avaricistic, inbred psychopaths who have a sheer pleasure in destroying society. They claim, this is their great secret, that they are building this world government in the name of peace, to stop nuclear war, to stop genetic engineering out of control. But on every front, they are greedily, like the demons they are, pressing the lever forward, slamming their foot down on the accelerator, driving us straight towards extinction. They are lovers of death. And like a moth to flame, they can't keep away from it. Like a moth to flame, they build their Hadron superconducting supercollider. And they make jokes on television about, yeah, there's a chance we're going to make a black hole. There's a chance we're going to cause an explosion 1 trillion times greater than the biggest H-bomb. But we're going to do it because we are the supposed God-men, they say. Meanwhile, they say that countries have to be invaded and millions have to be killed over 110-year-old technology of atomic weapons that they themselves handed out to the children of the world, just like in the old westerns where they throw the gun before the child and say, pick it up, kid, after the bad guy's already shot his daddy, and the little kid picks up the gun and they shoot him down in the dust, in the dirt. They use the technologies that have been developed as a pretext to menace this planet. They use the technologies they've developed as an excuse to take over our society. But at the base of everything they say, it is a lie. They are obsessed with death and destruction. And the human individual has to realize that we have no future if these people are not exposed and then ultimately defeated. It is the ultimate greed, the ultimate avarice, that the controllers understand what this species and this planet truly represents, the embryonic phase of our species, and that they would seek with chemicals and biologicals and radiologicals and television and media conditioning to dumb people down and to turn us against each other so that they can more easily manage our society. They have committed fundamental crimes, not just against races or groups, but against the human community itself. You look at all the different medical reports, all the mainline statistics, the male sperm count in Western Europe and the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the Anglo-American arm of this system, and sperm counts are down by over 85%. Infertility and cancers amongst women are over 2,000% on average increases. They are killing us in our homes. They are killing us in our cities and our towns quietly, slowly. They are doing this. They have confused us and compartmentalized us to the point we don't realize it. Just search the term human DNA irrevocably damaged. They've already gone in with the mercury-filled shots and the sodium fluoride in the water and the GMO foods in all the major studies and have already damaged the genetic code of this species to an incredibly dangerous level in their lust and their hatred of the general public. And the establishment themselves spends all their times only eating off organic farms, only drinking fluoridated water. They reportedly have all the cures to the binary weapon systems that they've released into our population. And it comes to that point of just realizing just how completely psychopathic and out of control these people are, that you then realize that your individual life means absolutely nothing. I have no fear of being killed myself. I have no fear of being destroyed by the media. I have no fear of disease individually, but I have great fear of being killed and not being able to complete my mission of warning humanity of what's happening to our society and allowing these people to continue. But the good news is they can't kill a Dr. Stan Monteith or an Alex Jones or someone else, because the idea, as I said earlier, is bulletproof. No army can stop an idea whose time has come. We have seen the type of society delivered by the globalists. We have seen what NAFTA and GATT and globalism has done. We have seen the hundreds of millions of deaths in the third world. We know it's a fraud, and the planet, as Zbigniew Brzezinski warned his minions, is awakening to them. Just last November, they had the Copenhagen, Denmark summit, and the media reported, don't worry, they're going to pass this Copenhagen Global Treaty. They're going to have the world population accept the carbon taxes on what humans exhale and plants live off of, carbon dioxide, because the third world has been promised all of this money and all of these taxes to lift their people up if they go along with it. Then the Danish released the text to the third world countries. And it stated that the taxes were a hair short of double on the third world what they would be on the West. It has been estimated to be a death sentence of at least 1 billion people within a decade if that program of soft kill eugenics is implemented, and we must resist it. Remember, the globalists have created part goat, part spider creatures for more than 15 years to create body armor. They have created salmon that are part insect and other fish. They've created goats and cows and pigs that are part human for transplants. They've created thousands of different pharmacological crops that produce live HIV in the corn, protegene, a decade ago. They have engaged in unbelievable genetic mutilation, genetic vandalism against this planet. They have used depleted uranium by the tens of thousands of tons all over the world. That's a death sentence to the military that uses it and the populations they fire it on. They have engaged in unbelievable environmental degradation, and the only reason they've gotten away with it is because they sit up there and pose as the environmental leaders, telling you, don't worry about DU, don't worry about toxic waste, don't worry about cutting down trees, worry about carbon dioxide that's part of the carbon cycle of this planet. Can you see how sick that is? And so that's why I talk more and more about the true threats to humanity. Hydrogen weapons, atomic weapons, antimatter weapons, cyclotrons, superconducting supercolliders, open-air genetic engineering. This is the true threat. It came out a year ago. And we told you beforehand that the flu shot was deadly, that it was genetically engineered. And it came out that, the big 5 drug makers had released an H1N1 simulant into the population. And now we know that simulant carries genetic RNA of viruses to literally reprogram our DNA. It's not just the toxic waste, the mercury, the asbestos, the rest of it, that is savaging and destroying human DNA. But it is the very viruses that they are loading our bodies full of as a weapon to dumb us down and to make us more servile and to make us sick so we're more easily controlled. And to answer that question, I will be getting into their master plan, but you know what their master plan is. It is death, it is destruction, it is complete and total war against free humanity. The globalists, in their own writings, over and over again, we covered this in my film Endgame, with their quotes and where they said it, they talk about irrevocably changing the human spirit. And they describe themselves as gods, but they're not gods. They're just humans on a power trip. And they talk about how they are changing our species. They talk about how they are changing who we are. And if they were changing us for the better, that would still be wrong because they didn't ask us. And they are the ones making the decision whether they're changing us for the better. But they admittedly are changing us for the worst. When they get on CBS News and say, mercury, the feds have shown, actually helps children and their learning, not hurts them. It cognitively enhances us. That's their sick joke. For them, lowering our IQ, dumbing us down, is a cognitive enhancement. For them, lowering our IQ is an enhancement because it's enhanced for them to make us more servile and more easily controlled. So the big issue at the end of the day is realizing evil, realizing it exists, learning how to recognize it. You know, we're taught that Mao and Stalin and Hitler and Pol Pot are evil, and they certainly were. But we're we're taught to recognize evil as something from the past, black and white films. We don't see a creeping, slow death in control of our society at every level. And it's scary to realize this, but it's also empowering to know it, because the greatest solution is knowing your enemy, as Sun Tzu said, and understanding what they're doing and knowing that they don't have your best intentions at heart. In fact, they want you dead so they can have the future for themselves and their children and their grandchildren. And once you know that, you understand that it doesn't matter whether they kill you individually. It doesn't matter if your neighbor laughs at you. It doesn't matter what your boss or employees say, because you have the truth, you have their own documents, you have their own reports, and you know who they are. And fundamentally, you understand that all of us individually will pass away. It's just like waiting for Christmas when you're a little kid, and pretty soon it comes. But once you're an adult, it's there all of a sudden. The years just speed by. All of us are going to die sooner rather than later, but we live on through free humanity. And once you commit yourself to this species, once you love your fellow man and woman, once you understand these greater truths, once you understand the level that we're playing against and how high the stakes are, it doesn't matter anymore what they do to you individually, because they cannot stop an idea whose time has come. Nothing will stop it. The globalists have spun this incredible web of technological control. They have beguiled us. They have seduced us into using their iPhones and their computers. They are engineering a society where we are all 100% dependent on it, on a system created by DARPA and the CIA more than 30 years ago. And it is a system of surveillance, of control, of, as Google now admits, literally predicting the future by tracking your mass movements and your individual movements. Think about that. And more and more we now see them removing the freedoms that were once on the internet. We see them more and more talking about curtailing free speech because they've misjudged. They plan to use the World Wide Web as a worldwide wiretap. But now they understand that we, the individuals, have seized that system and are using it effectively against the globalist. Yeah! How many of you saw the 1010 Project TV commercial? How many of you saw TV ads run in England to school children, put in front of movies in England? They tried to air them in the U.S. How many of you saw a teacher sitting there as this authority figure in front of her students saying, who's going to make a cut in their carbon footprint? Oh, Jenny, you are. Bobby, you are. David, you are. Karen, you are. Oh, you 5 kids aren't gonna make a carbon cut, which is just a tax of the globalist.
No pressure.
Yeah. She said, there's no pressure. She said, you've made your decision. And then she hits a button and they explode and blood splatters all over the other children. And then they had another commercial in the same ad. It continued where it shows a corporate manager, and he's standing up above him on the second floor, and all the employees are down there below, and he's the authority figure. And he says, how many of you are going to make cuts in your carbon footprint? And most of them say they are. And he goes, that's good. It's your decision, but some don't. And he hits a red button and murders people. And then it shows a radio talk show host who won't make carbon cuts, and a soccer team that won't make carbon cuts, and they have to be killed as well. And now the phony environmentalists, the people that don't care about genetic engineering or nuclear weapons, they come out and they say more and more, yes, we are eco-fascist. We want to bring tyranny to save the earth. They're our saviors. We have to bow down before them. We have to go along with their agenda to artificially cut off our resources in the name of the environment. But my point is, if you go to Australia and you read ABC News in Australia, they teach children in the public schools, headline, children taught when to die, that when you're age 14, you should commit suicide. And then we wonder why there's record suicides. But don't worry, they've got serotonin reuptake inhibitors that admittedly on the insert increase suicide to treat your suicidal tendencies when you're taught as a 5th and 6th and 7th grader how to commit suicide. This is all out in the open, and what they're doing is they're turning off our survival instinct. They're teaching us that it's a good thing to want to die. They're teaching us that we're a pile of crap that needs to go away. They're telling us that we have no worth and that we need to get out of the way for the whales and the giraffes and the elephants and the Bengal tigers. But that isn't even the truth of the matter. They want us out of the way for them, because the globalists have suppressed incredible life extension technologies and other systems, and they don't want to give you access to it. And so we are literally frozen in a form of modern dark age, given limited technological advancements, while on the government and corporate reservations, they have taken our technological development to levels, from the reports I have from inside, that are absolutely unbelievable. If you went back 100 years ago and told somebody we'd have cell phones, or that we'd have jet airplanes, or that we would have genetic engineering, they would laugh at you. And it's the same thing today. What we know of, what we understand, is only a small part of what the controllers have now gained access to. And that's why they're so full of arrogance. That's why they're so full of hubris, because they have all this technology. They're on amazing power trips. But there's one big problem with the equation. They're not giving and loving people that realize they're part of this species and connected to everyone else. Even if they lie to themselves and tell themselves that they're gods, they are still connected to each and every one of us. And when they commit that crime against humanity and our species, they commit a crime against themselves. Here's an example. Whether you look at China or Europe, anywhere in the world, it's the same thing. The more cunning, the more backstabbing, the more manipulative you are, the more duplicitous, your family accelerates into circles of greater and greater power, until you have all these inbred psychopaths intermarrying together who don't just go along with killing their fellow humans and dumbing their fellow humans down, and who hate their fellow humans having an understanding of knowledge. I mean, I love people having knowledge. I love people taking their blinders off. I love people opening their minds to a larger and greater world. The globalists hate that. And that's a fundamental crime against creativity. And it's a fundamental crime not just against us, but themselves. But here's the message to the controllers. Do they think that once they're done, if they're successful, soft killing us, slowly exterminating us through wars and famine and genetic Armageddon, do they think that that psychopathic murdering instinct that they have is going to go away? Do they think this war against their fellow humans is going to end when there's only 50 million globalists on the planet, as they put in the stone of the Georgia Guidestones? As the United Nations Biological Diversity Assessment 1996 states, their plan is to reduce us by close to 90%, down to 500 million. Do they think they're going to stop the killing, stop the murdering, stop the poisoning, stop the subterfuge? No. When you really study these people, it's like a giant Grand Prix with 1,000 globalist race cars out there on the track, all racing for who could be the most wicked, the most evil, the most destructive. Do they think that race is going to stop? No. They all hate each other more than they even hate us individually. They only join together through their power structure as an attempt to cement their monopoly of power. They are not going to stop. The global elite are a self-serving, nearsighted group of degenerates who fundamentally cannot stop their completely destructive ways. And that's the issue that must be understood. When you read the mainline, publicly available, declassified history that in the 1850s, Galton along with Darwin, developed the plan of eugenics. When you read deeper and find out eugenics isn't just injecting Guatemalan children with syphilis to kill them deader than a hammer, or giving Nigerian children live polio, now declassified, just going on this year. Oh no, it doesn't just stop with that. It continues on and on and on. And these people have committed these crimes out in the open, and they have trained us that we're powerless and trained us to accept all of this. And they are not gods. They are not all powerful. They have the amazing human potential, but they are the lesser among us. The average good-hearted person would never think like this, would never come up with ideas like this, would never do things like this. It is only the worst in our society. Going back to the social Darwinist who said, if we can kill masses of people, if we can start wars, if we can remove populations, we're doing a genetic favor to the planet because only the strongest exist. That is an incredibly sickening statement to realize in its totality. And I know at a certain level, it is, again, scary. But as Patrick Henry said, I would know the whole of the truth and make preparation for it. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And when you make the fundamental decision to face the facts and realize just how high the costs are, you understand what he was talking about. It is a spiritual death. It is a physical death. To turn yourself over to their delusions, to turn yourself over to their mind control, and to go along with their fundamental lies. You are only alive and empowered when you are truly seeking the truth and opening yourself up to the overriding spirit of life and liberty that governs this universe. So as dire our straits are, remember what Martin Luther King said. The universe bends towards justice. And as Thomas Jefferson said, all that evil men and tyrants need to flourish is that good men and women do nothing. Remember, the globalists know how much power you have individually. They know what you can do. They know what your ancestors went through, how they struggled for us to have anything today. They understand how strong our species is, and they are scared of you. So from the time you're born, they teach you that you're bad. They teach you that you're pathetic. They teach you that you don't have any power, because in truth, you have unlimited power when you take action for humanity and do the right thing and have the will and the confidence to face the facts. Earlier, I talked about the Hadron Superconducting Super Collider. They were going to build it up in North Texas by Dallas and Waxahachie. Over a 1,000-mile concentric ring where they were going to accelerate particles. And in their own words, they say they're looking for the God particle. They're looking for a way to open a dimensional gate. This is not my words. This is Reuters and Associated Press. And now they've built it in CERN on the Swiss-French border. And they're not just slamming uranium, plutonium particles into blocks of lead, speeding them up to the speed of light or close. They are now running uranium and plutonium and uranium and uranium and plutonium and plutonium into each other at light speed. And I read their quotes on their own website. I watch their tours. And they say, yes, there's a statistical chance we're going to create a black hole. that will destroy the earth in seconds. There's a statistical chance we're going to make a strangelet that destroys the planet. There's a statistical chance that we're going to create a fission fusion reaction that damages the planet or even destroys it. But we're going to do it in the search for information, in the search for immortality, in the search for the secrets of the universe. And then they tell us that the danger is carbon dioxide. Hey, I'll make a deal with them. We'll put a tax on carbon dioxide as soon as they stop all the genetic engineering and all the colliding of uranium. If they can take equations from Max Planck and Albert Einstein, some of them over 110 years old, and blow up entire cities, can you imagine what 110 years later these people have got? But what power is it if they destroy the whole planet? I love my 3 children, my 2 daughters and my son. I love them 1,000 times more than myself. I'd give my life up instantly for them, not thinking 1 second. But I ask you a question. What do we give up for the unborn generations? If you could hold your great-great-great-grandson in your arms or your great-great-great-granddaughter in your arms, would you not love them or any other child just as much as you love your children today? I say to the globalist, just like a diver down 400 feet who is having an oxygen-starved hallucination of grandeur, you have a delusion up in your ivory towers. You have released Pandora's box. You are hurtling our species towards destruction. You are not God. You may have the spirit and the seed of the universe in you, but you cannot control it. And how dare you hurtle our society and our species towards certain destruction in your mad, competitive drive for total power. I'm only halfway through one page. I got like 4 more pages. You know, I don't know what it is, but I keep my studio about 65 degrees. And every time I get angry and focused, I start sweating. Red-blooded, baby. And I'm in here right now, and I tell you, I'm sweating like a big fat hog. Because let me tell you something. I can feel your energy.
We love you, Alan.
I can feel the energy. It doesn't matter if you came here as an African slave in a coffin ship and half your people died on the way. You carry all of their strength with you. It doesn't matter if you came over here 300 years ago on a ship for 3 months and your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother gave birth in the bottom of a sewage-filled, rat-filled cistern. You are here today because of the incredible sacrifices that our ancestors have made, and I want to recognize everything humanity did. I want to recognize everything that our ancestors went through fighting 2,000-pound cave bears and saber-toothed tigers and hyenas and the weather and the earthquakes and huddling in caves, doing everything we could with our babies to survive. And I'm telling you, we're going to beat the New World Order. And may our ancestors not just on the moons of Saturn and Jupiter, but our ancestors 1 trillion light years away. Remember what we did when they faced those challenges, when our ancestors live 1 million years. Let them remember what we, as their protogenic humans, did to ensure that the lowest scum didn't chart our course, but loving, free humanity took to the stars. It is. Thank you. As our ancestors fought and died and starved to death and sacrificed for us to be here, as we lay in this eugenics bed of comfortable death, watching the TV, gorging ourselves with the poisons, remember everything our ancestors did to bring us to this point. Remember the honor and the beauty and everything good that we can literally feel in our genetic code. Remember those instincts, those ancestral memories that will take us in, through, and beyond and defeat the globalist. Now, I haven't even begun to get my speech. And hey, I want everybody to be able, because I know a lot of you stood in line, I want everybody to be able to have a 15, 20-minute intermission. I'm going to come back and speak for 2 hours. I'm going to take 30 minutes of questions. But I want MZ, some of the great folks from KSCO and their other great station, to come up here and speak 15, 20 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to break down their system of control. And I'm going to reach out to all those compartmentalized people. And I am going to get into part 2, the globalist master plan of what's going to happen to this world if we don't have a gut check and realize we're all info warriors on the front line to bring these tyrants down. It is us. You know, there are great truths. There are great truths to this world and this universe. And the globalists have taken all of the sacred symbols that are so dear to humanity and they've co-opted them for their own control. If you use a symbol of the sun, they say it's occultic. And it's not occultic. The globalists have taken that symbol. Today I pulled over on the side of the road with these big trees, and there were all these little acorns that had beautiful designs on them, just genetic beauty. And I saw the symbol of the star. That's not an evil symbol. That's a symbol the globalists have taken as their emblem of war and empire. And we see all of this masterful handiwork. You know, the evidence of the Creator is in the firmament. It's in the stars. It's in everything around us. And when you tune into the fact of just how special this life is, just how beautiful it is, whether it's a sunny day or a rainy day, to look at that ocean buoys and empowers my heart and my very being. There's something so beautiful about an old woman or an old man and their dignity and their humanity. There's something so beautiful about the innocence of a child. There's something so good about life and just wholesomeness and everything we can do together. We have been taught corruption. We have been taught to hate each other. We've been taught to be weak. We've been taught to live in this system. But there's something so much better. And that doesn't mean we're going towards some utopia or some heaven or some Valhalla here while we're alive. But the issue is, by realizing the good versus the bad, we can make that decision and move in the direction that we choose to put our soul in eternity for. We make that decision of literal energy. Which side of the fence are you on? I am on the side of life. I am on the side of liberty. I am on the side of exploration. I am on the side of discovery. I am on the side of courage. And I'm not worried about how this ends, because this is all just one piece in a larger play, a larger passion play. What matters is, while you inhabit this body, this earth suit, that you make the right decision. The Creator is watching. All of our ancestors are watching. everything good and decent is on our side. And the moment we realize that is the second that tyranny falls. The globalists are scared. They can feel your strength. They can feel your honor. They can feel down into the bones of the earth the unstoppable force that is this species. And to the control freaks that think they will destroy this species and have the future for themselves, we tell you, not without a fight. We've got some great speakers coming up. I'm going to take a break and wring out my shirt. We're going to be back in 20 minutes. The revolution's in our mind, my friend. It's already begun. That's why the enemy's trying to come in with all this tyranny. I'm going to talk about that next. Anyways, I'll be back in a second. I want to give everybody a chance to come back. Take your time. I would imagine the bathrooms are pretty busy, so give everybody some time to get back. I can't quit looking at that disco ball. That would, no, I'm not going to torture the listeners. He wants me to sing a song. They so pride in every stitch. Guarantee you love the way they fit. Around the office, we have the ads playing while I'm on air, and that's one of the most effective jingles ever. Just like there's a place down Tennessee where they make blue diamond gusset jeans. They so pride in every stitch. Guaranteed you like the way they fit. God, I'm singing advertisement jingles. We better look out. We're here in this interplanetary fight against the globalists. Now, let me tell you about blue diamond gusset jeans. At least I'm not doing jokes like George W. Bush about no WMDs here. No WMDs there. But we took that C-SPAN footage and showed all the dead families, and it had a big effect. Bush making jokes about Iraq and his lies about WMDs and all those dead bodies. And I notice Obama does it too. They joke about the war crimes and the drone attacks, and it's funny. And they love to sit there and laugh in front of everybody and get us to involve ourselves in their evil. And then when we watch Jack Bauer on Fox News or Fox TV, same thing. Fox Fiction. When we sit there and watch it and fantasize about him as the new hero, he's torturing the bad guy. He's getting the answers. He's torturing that person's kid to get the answers. Why, the new heroes in America, they're child torturers. I mean, that just shows how incredibly bold these people are. Folks ready to get rolling? I did want to speak a little bit more about the awakening that's happening all over the planet. You know, the alternative media is becoming the mainstream media. It is unseating, according to every metric we've got, the establishment press on the fake left and the fake right all over the planet. And the biggest illustrations of that are the fact that they're trying to inoculate us psychologically so that as this stuff comes out, it isn't a shock. So now they go on CNN and the Associated Press and Fox and go, here's Colonel such and such with the Marines. Colonel, how are you fighting Al-Qaeda? Well, we give fertilizer to the Afghans to grow opium. It's only at over 12 times previous production, but that's how we fight drugs. We grow them. So it's not just a CIA aircraft now crashing in Mexico with pure cocaine from the source. It's not just congressional hearings about it. Now they just come right out and say, yeah, we're growing the drugs. Just Friday, before I flew out here, I had Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer on. He ran Operation Stratus Ivy and Able Danger. And his white side, not black side or dark side of the military, was actually trying to kill all these Al-Qaeda operatives before 9/11. And they were told, stand down. But I had him on, and I said, do you know about them admitting that our government helps grow the opium? And he said, yeah, I do know about that. And he just said, I don't know what to say. See, they don't know what to say. But the issue is, this isn't 5 years ago or 10 years ago when they said, lunatics like Alex Jones say our government's shipping in the cocaine and heroin. The only people they raid are those that aren't paying their cut to them, the small cowboys. Now they go, hell yeah, we grow opium by the megaton and ship it in. But if you're not for shipping heroin into America, you're with Al-Qaeda. I mean, think about it. We have checkmated them to the point that they've got to come right out on the news and say, well, if we didn't grow the opium, Al-Qaeda would. But Al-Qaeda, of course, is Al-Qaeda, one of their creations. And it's just like they have to admit, okay, Operation Northwoods is declassified. The U.S. government plan to stage 9/11 style attacks and crash planes and bomb D.C. and shoot people. But that was then, this is now, we wouldn't do something like that. And yeah, we called people conspiracy theorists for 40 years, but guess what? We've declassified it. We did stage the Gulf of Tonkin to get us into Vietnam. And it killed 58,000 Americans and over 1 million Vietnamese and maimed over 250,000 Americans. But that's okay, because if you're not for staging terror attacks to get us into a war, you're not a red-blooded American. So we are now at that point where they can't deny anymore. So they're coming out and saying, yeah, there's trillions of dollars missing the Federal Reserve took, and the Pentagon's missing $4 trillion in the last decade, but let's change the subject to this turban guy. Isn't he scary? Because if you ask us where the $4 trillion is from the Pentagon or the $28 trillion missing the banks took, we're not going to be able to keep you safe. What did Dick Cheney say back in 2004 on Meet the Press? They were saying, Mr. Vice President, there's reports of Al-Qaeda leadership meeting at the White House and other places, and that you had foreknowledge. And he said, there will be a nuclear attack in the United States if you don't leave us alone about this and allow us to protect you. Remember what came out last Wednesday? Somebody leaked it to Fox News and the Associated Press, and strangely enough, Fox ran with it, and the Pentagon said, this is terrible. We're going to hunt down who released this information. They admitted it was real. Anwar al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey, to quote Tarpley. No, I mean, look, we already knew this 6-7 years ago. We wrote articles about it. We've been all over Awlaki. And they say, the guy that ran the Christmas Day underwear bombing, the guy that ran the Fort Hood shooting, Major Hassan, the guy that was the number 3 in command of 9/11, the guy who was involved in the Times Square attack, yeah, it's true. 2 months after he was the number 3 suspect on national news, in plain view of everyone, this is still incredible, but it shows how bad we're hurting him. He went to the Pentagon to meet with the Secretary of the Army and the top brass for a celebration. I mean, they had one hell of a celebration on 9/11, didn't they? Just like PNAC documents, Dick Cheney, September 20th, 2000, said, minus a Pearl Harbor event with at least 3,000 deaths to be blamed on foreign countries, we're not going to be able to expand our empire. That's how stupid they think we are. Their hubris, their arrogance out in the open is what is going to bring them down. So Anwar al-Awlaki, months after he's one of the top 9/11 suspects, is at the Pentagon in a top-level meeting with the head brass, and it's admitted in plain view. And then he runs every single terror attack after that. And you've got terror attacks that are purely staged like 9/11. But you've got other ones in every case. 93, World Trade Center bombing, New York Times, CBS News, where they admit that Ahmad Salam was hired to cook a fake bomb for some Muslim extremist nutcases. And, they got them on all sides. So they got black extremists, white extremists, Christian extremists, Buddhist extremists even in that group, Hindu extremists, not many Buddhist extremists, but you know what I mean. The point is they got them all, but they're very rare. It's like finding an Easter bunny. Your mama told you about it, but you don't believe it like Santa Claus. The point is we're told give up all of our rights, and in every case, in the case of 93, this is all on record. In fact, it got declassified, the actual audio. We had the articles back in 1993 in the New York Times and CBS, but last year when we were making Invisible Empire with Jason Burmis, they had released the actual audio tapes. And so they hired this Ahmad Salam guy, and the FBI says, we're going to cook a fake bomb and set up this mosque with some extremists. Think you can do that? He was former CIA guy. He says, yeah, I'll set up some extremists. And so they send him in, and they say, now we're going to build a real bomb because they need that in court to bust him. Are you good for that? And he said, well, not really, as long as there's not a detonator. He said, I'll build a bomb, a real one, to get him in court because I want to stop these people because he'd been in Egypt fighting them. But he said, you've got to not have a real detonator. And they said, absolutely no real detonator, Mr. Ahmad Salam. We wouldn't want to do something like that. Then 5 days before, they said, here's the detonator. And he was an Egyptian bomb expert, and he said, well, this is a real detonator. And they said, well, that's going to help in court. Then 3 days before, he came to him and he said, I don't want to do this. And they said, look, we're going to let this bombing go ahead. This is all, and then he got paranoid. He went, whoa, they're going to frame me for this. So he went into the FBI and recorded more than 12 hours of them telling him, go ahead with it. And they were going to bomb the World Trade Center. Now, this is on record. The tapes are released. Just like Anwar al-Awlaki is at the Pentagon 2 months after with the head brass in a secret meeting. He's already on the news as the number 3 in Al-Qaeda. He's at the Pentagon. And if you look at everybody Anwar al-Awlaki ran, it's the same story. They go out and find people with low IQs, generally about 80. That's close to mentally retarded. I mean, literally. Literally. They go find people who've already been profiled by the welfare system, and they set them up, or they find mental cases like Hassan. And it came out on mainstream news that Major Hassan at Fort Hood last year, Major Hassan for 2 years was sending emails to Anwar al-Awlaki talking about, I'm going to bomb, I'm going to shoot. And the government protected him and allowed him to do what he did. So they're a real terrorist. But 9 times out of 10, it'd be like if I went down and spent 2 years with some schizophrenic, poor homeless person here in Santa Cruz and put them in a house and gave them money and found that one day that they'd go out and shoot some people. Who's guilty? That homeless schizophrenic or the people that got him to do it? I'm asking you that question. That's an example of how these people operate. That's an example of what they do. That's an example of the operations they run. So it's out in the open, they ship in the drugs. It's out in the open, they're staging the terror. It's out in the open that the banks are robbing us blind. Let's go back a year ago with another one of Anwar al-Awlaki's patsies. I get a call from one of my listeners, Mr. Haskell, Kurt Haskell and his wife, they're lawyers, 2 days after the Christmas Day bombing. 2 days after. 2 days. And he says, Mr. Jones, I was in Europe at the airport, and I was there in Amsterdam, and I saw them bring in Matalib, the underwear bomber, and he was disheveled. He looked like he was out of sorts, drugged, and he had no passport. He had no visa. This is on record. After, not at first. Wasn't it on record at first? I get this call. I confirm Kurt Haskell was on the plane with his wife. Later, other witnesses come out. And they describe in Amsterdam, this guy gets bypassed the naked body scanners they already had. He gets through the scanners. He gets through the checkpoint. And he's at the gate, and he has no passport, no nothing. And they're saying, we're not going to let this guy on. And a sharp-dressed man came and flashed ID and said, you will let him on the plane. And he was so high authority that they let him on the plane, and the rest is history. He had a firecracker in his pants. So now we've all got a naked body scan. Then the FBI goes to Kurt Haskell's office and tells him, you didn't see that, it didn't happen. There was a lot of other stuff went on the plane. But it's a long story we've covered on the radio. And for 2 months, they lied and said that Kurt Haskell wasn't telling the truth. Then more witnesses from the plane came forward and said they saw it. And the undersecretary for visas, number 2 position in the State Department, Kennedy, went public and said, yeah, an unnamed U.S. intelligence agency ordered us to help him get on the plane. You got Anwar al-Awlaki at the Pentagon after 9/11, the mastermind. You got him running the underwear bomber, and you've got the State Department being ordered to get him on the plane. We have these people. And the issue is, why they're scared, is they can't cover this up anymore. They can't shut down all the alternative media. They can't shut you up. And they know that this is happening. They're aware of that. So what do? 4 months ago, Spy Talk, weekly column, written by a former CIA agent, Washington Post. They have a 5-page article where they say the CIA fakes bin Laden videos, but it's patriotic. Those videos you saw were fake, but it's patriotic. They have news articles where, yes, the government ships the drugs in, but you don't want the criminals getting the drugs, do you? They come out, yeah, the Gulf of Tonkin was staged, yeah, we did this, yeah, we did that, in an attempt to take our power of disclosure away. But it doesn't work. See, before they could tell you, there's no world government, there's no CFR plan to bankrupt the world economy and call for a global currency that's backed up by carbon taxes. But Dr. Stan Monteith, 48 years ago, didn't care if they laughed at him. I didn't care 15 years ago they laughed at me. You didn't care if your neighbor last week laughed at you. We told the truth. We're here in the open. We're going to tell the truth, and it doesn't matter what you say or what you do. We're not going away. And you can kill me, you can kill this guy, or you can kill her, but you can't get us all. And we're not going to stop, and we're not going to shut up, and we're not going to go away. And that's why I say, in resistance is victory. If your cause is right, doesn't mean we're 100% right, but we're going in the right direction. If you're looking for the truth and you don't shut up and you never quit and you can't be shut down and you don't care what people say to you and you never go away, nothing on earth can stop you, and that's why they're scared of you. They're scared of you because you carry the light of truth and honor and everything that's good in your soul. And when you turn that loose, there's nothing on this planet that can stop you. Now, I go back to this. When you have no shame, when you're not afraid, when you don't care what people say about you, who are scared, want to keep in their little comfort boxes. When you get outside of that, it is so enlightening, it is so empowering, it is so fulfilling. And as this spirit of liberty spreads, as people discover their own innate personal power and their own tie-in to the overall human destiny and something much larger, there's no amount of propaganda. There's no amount of slick semantics. There's no amount of divide and conquer. There's no amount of left-right paradigm that can stop you. And that's my overall message. Look, I'm just some guy 17 years ago who woke up to corruption. And I had a thimble's worth of information compared to what I have now. If I'm still alive 10 years from now, I'll be blessed, but I'll have even more knowledge than I have now. It doesn't even matter that we all have all the answers. None of us do. Anybody that tells you they do is a liar. It's that we have common sense, we know things are going in the wrong direction, and we're simply saying no. I control my own destiny. I am not your slave, and I'm not going along with this agenda because my gut, because my instinct, everything I am tells me we're going in the wrong direction. I remember being on the air 15 years ago, been awake for about 17, but 15 years ago, local access TV in Austin, right before I got a local radio show. And I remember the death threats and the attacks and the city attempting to keep me off access television. I remember all those things happening. And it didn't matter because I knew that I was standing up for the truth. And people who made fun of me, people who laughed at me, people that made jokes, I didn't get hurt by that. I felt sorry for them because I knew I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. I knew, that my elevator didn't go all the way to the top. Nobody's perfect. I knew that I didn't have all the answers. And I felt so sorry for them that they couldn't even see what was plain. What a moron like me could see, they couldn't inherently understand that truth. Because this isn't, at the end of the day, about intelligence. This is about guts. This is about intuition. This is about discernment. This is about being tuned in to the truth. And when you simply switch your channel to the truth, you don't need Alex Jones to tell you anything. I'm just getting people to tune over to the truth, to open their eyes up, to look around them, to ask themselves, is what's happening a good thing or is it a bad thing? And that's all I want people to do, is to realize there's more going on around them than what Fox and CNN say. And that's the key. If you simply start questioning and you take little steps, the incredible effect, the power of just getting a neighbor to think for themselves, of just getting a neighbor to value liberty and freedom, maybe 1/10 that they value the World Series coming up with the Giants and the Rangers, to get them to appreciate being involved in the real process that is the human experience. Now, listen, I'll be honest with you before I continue with the speech, and then your questions. I was about to say your phone calls. Before I go any further, it is, seriously though, it is humbling to be here with you today. And it's humbling to just be able to interact with people and to have folks travel from all over to hear me. Because again, I just see myself as an average person, but in that averageness, I realize the overall power that all of us have together. And that's what's special. It's all of us here tonight saying no to the tyranny. We're not going to lay down, and we're going to go out and wake up everybody we can to this dehumanizing agenda. And I want to say something to all the great security people and police that are here. I feel like I was carrying the nuclear football, or nuclear, as George W. Bush would say, from Kennebunkport, Maine. Seriously, I pulled up, and it was like they were rushing me in here, and I do appreciate them. And that speaks to compartmentalization. I see the national media, and I see how they show all these police brutality videos. And if you just go back 5 years ago, I would get very, very upset by those. And those are wrong on a case-by-case basis. But then I began to read more of the declassified psychological warfare manuals and things out there, and I began to understand that at a limited level, I'd actually played into the globalist plan. And all of us do. None of us are perfect. The fact is we're moving in the right direction. A lot of people don't get politically involved because they want to have it perfectly developed before they say anything or do anything. The truth is we're not perfect. And it's in that imperfection that's the beauty of our species. But then I began to read the psychological warfare manuals, and I also read a lot of the training they gave the SS, Hitler's Gestapo. And they liked early on in 1933, once Hitler was in power, to have their police go out and do abusive things so that the public would then, at least segments of them, start to hate them. And then as the public began to start hating the police, that's what they wanted. They wanted the police to feel like they were in their own group. They were in their own separate organization. The Nazis called it the cement of blood. But they were Germans. They were people too. And the secret here is that police are compartmentalized just like everybody else. They're human beings as well. And over the years, I've had police send me so many documents, the MIAC and Homeland Security reports and countless others, where the government is training to take on gun owners and libertarians and conservatives and anti-war activists. None of this has to do with Al-Qaeda. Over 90% of the training deals with the American people. And I begin to understand the type of programming that the police and the military had gone under, and to simply reach out to them and show them the larger picture, just like I'm doing the public, the general public, so that they could make a decision for themselves which side of history they're standing on. Because the truth is, they shop at the same grocery stores. They go to the same churches and mosques and synagogues. They go to the same ball games. They have hopes and dreams for their children, just like we do. And if we can address them as fellow men and women and show them how they've been conditioned, and show them how the system has fostered crime and corruption, and to show them the choices they have, 9 times out of 10, they will make the decision to join free humanity. Now, that said, and anybody can search this, out of Maryland or even Los Angeles, for more than 15 years, they try as hard as they can to not hire any police officers with 100 IQ or higher. Now, why are they doing that? Because they don't want people that are going to question. They don't want people that are going to see deception. They don't want people who are going to question corruption. But in that microcosm of the government on record, I talked to a lot of people that are like, man, I got 2 degrees and I played rugby, but I didn't get hired as a cop. Well, it's because you got 140 IQ, stupid. You think they want a warrior of that caliber with a big brain who actually wants to protect people? Because a real man, a real woman doesn't want to be a bully. They want to help people. Somebody with real power is ashamed to exercise it against people that don't deserve it. And the system knows that. But listen, they're not just trying to hire police with under 100 IQs. They're not just trying to do that. That's why they put the sodium fluoride in your water. That's reduced the IQ of upwards of 20 points in the last 50 years. Oh yeah, the U.S. isn't lethargic for no reason. They're not just adding mercury to the shots to brain damage our children by accident. They're not just trying to hire police that aren't the sharpest knife in the drawer. They want us all to be dull. They want us all to be dumbed down. They want us all to be drugged, because they understand the innate power that all of us have within us. And so we need to come together and have that message of fraternity and brotherhood and sisterhood and lay out the choices, because they train a lot of people, corporate bureaucrats, lawyers, police, you name it, corporate hatchet men, corporate hatchet women, to feel like they're part of a special group, an elite group, that knows better and is doing all of this. And at the end of the day, if you actually study the globalist program, you understand that 99.9% of us are in the same boat. It doesn't matter if you're black. It doesn't matter if you're white. It doesn't matter if you're Hispanic. It doesn't matter if you're Asian, Native American. It doesn't matter if you're a preacher. It doesn't matter if you're a cop. It doesn't matter if you're a school teacher, an auto mechanic, a guy that sells auto parts. It doesn't matter if you're a psychologist. It doesn't matter who you are. You are under attack, and the globalists are trying to create the maps that your mind is supposedly going to follow. They are trying to control and restrict your reality so they can blind you from the wider world. They are trying to pull the wool over your eyes. They are trying to blind you from this world that isn't a matrix yet, but is designed to become one. And that gets into the end game. I remember seeing a document from the 1970s declassified in February of 2000. This is a few years after the first Matrix movie had come out. And I remember being on an Army server, reading a public document, and this sounds crazy, but you can pull it up. It's in one of my earlier films. And they said, in the future, it's our job to end all conflict. And how are we going to end all conflict? All humans will live in tanks with wires hooked into their brains, and we will all be part of a large, basic hive mind. Sounds crazy. It's not me, it's the Army saying it. Federation of American Scientists actually released it, and the Army said reclassify it. The Matrix is actually what they want to do. Now, that doesn't mean that that's real or could happen. That's up for debate. The point is, these people are trying it. And that's how we're already watching 5-6 hours of TV a day. We're already interfacing with computers. We're already being sucked into this system. I've seen studies showing the average vocabulary of a high school student has been reduced by more than 30%. They can't even communicate with each other. What did George Orwell talk about? He talked about INSOC, English socialism, where they would reduce the language down to a point where you couldn't even communicate with somebody. You couldn't even use the words to actually be able to even talk to them. And that's what they're planning. You read Ray Kurzweil and all these top futurists, Nobel Prize winners. They openly talk about, we will have world government by 2025, and we will exterminate the majority of the population. You read what Bill Joy in the 1999 April issue of Wired magazine, co-owner of Sun Microsystems, a multi-billionaire. He wrote an article saying why the future doesn't need us. You can pull it up. And he said, I went to a consortium meeting of the 200 richest IT owners, and the main discussion at the meeting was not about new technology coming out. The biggest part of the meeting was deciding, do we give people sports and entertainment? And do we just give people something to do because of robotics and technology? The elite doesn't need us anymore for manual labor. Or do we kill everyone? And look, people can say, well, that's negative. That's scary. Look, you don't choose your reality. Reality is what it is. You could take some guy and put him on PCP and put him up on a 50-story building, and he thinks he's a skylark about to go flying across the city. He's going to fall off that building and splash on the bottom. He's going to die. Perception is not reality. Reality is we've been fed a false delusion. But you had Bill Joy, the co-owner of Sun Microsystems, say he doesn't think this is a very good idea to get rid of all of us, and openly warn you. Took a lot of courage. But then you had his partner, the other owner of Sun Microsystems, that same year on PBS, on Lair NewsHour, say, my vision is everyone with a microchip being tracked by the government. My vision is computers controlling our everyday lives. My vision is cars driving themselves. My vision is everything you do being tracked, to the point of we can predict the future off of tracking your mass movements. And everything he said 11 years ago is now happening. I was in my hotel room last night and saw a Ford commercial for a car that parks itself. Just like children now don't know how to do reading, writing, and arithmetic on average. They don't know how to do a basic equation with pencil and paper because they needed a calculator to do it. All of those tools are good, but at the end of the day, they dehumanize us. We are being killed by the largesse. We're being killed by the decadence. We're being killed by how easy everything is, when in truth, our species was developed and went through a process of incredible challenge to be where we are today. So that's why I use the term soft kill weapon. We are psychically being killed. We are emotionally being killed. We are mentally being killed. At every level, we are being anesthetized and drugged by entertainment and the culture to go along with this system. So I'm going to continue here for another 30 minutes or so, and then we're going to take some questions and comments. But I know tonight I'm getting into a lot of transhumanism and futurist developments. It's just when I challenge any of you to read the top futurists, and these aren't just futurists. I mean, these are people who are designing many of the technologies that dominate our lives, and they have huge events with thousands of people that attend, and keynote speakers like William Shatner, and they've all been offered. This is what they say at these meetings. This is all public. This is all open source. Just like I told you, Anwar al-Awlaki, the number 3 guy, now the number 1 guy, they say, in Al-Qaeda, openly works for the Pentagon. That's publicly admitted. And when I get up here and I tell you that the futurist, the transhumanist, Julian Huxley, head of the UN UNESCO program in the 50s, said, we got kind of a bad name under Hitler with eugenics, we better change it to transhumanist. They have these meetings, and this is all they talk about. And I talked to news reporters that have come and interviewed me from major magazines, and they go, yeah, we interview Harvard and Yale professors, and they say the same thing you're saying, but they say it's a good thing that all the public's a bunch of idiots. They don't want to be cyborgs. We're going to be cyborgs, and we're going to blast off into the future, and everybody else is basically going to be removed. And I know this all sounds crazy, but so do cell phones, so do jet airplanes, so do rockets into space. So to all of this, we are living in a Buck Rogers age right now, and what we know is only a tiny layer of this overall system. So The stakes are so high, and the people running the system are folks just like us, but they've been offered the entree of eternal life. And again, I'm not saying any of this is real. I'm not saying they can actually do this. The issue is 110% they are saying they're doing this. And so if you want to get inside the mind of a globalist, if you want to know what they're thinking, what they're saying, what they're really doing, what makes them tick, why they want to get rid of 6 billion people down to 500 million, they openly state it. They say, we've got life extension coming online. And then again, this is at the suppressed technological level. It's more advanced. And we're not going to give this to the general public. They are profane. They are weak. They are dumb. And they do not deserve this. And we need to set up a planetary dictatorship to carry out orderly one-child policies, forced abortions, Rockefeller Foundation, it's all public, vaccines, tetanus shots that sterilize you. This is all public. Just like Anwar al-Awlaki's an admitted Pentagon terrorist, we've got all the Rockefeller Foundation documents directly linked on their own website. They're proud of how they made the tetanus shot to sterilize you or reduce your fertility. They're proud of the Guatemalan children they shot up with syphilis. They're proud of the black people they shot up with syphilis. They're proud of the 4,000 plus American foster children they radiated to death. All public. But we trust this government. We go along with this government. They tell us we're taking your rights and your liberties to keep you safe from men wearing turbans when it's in the news every day. Oh, Project Shad nerve gas thousands of U.S. veterans. Many of them died. But the government was doing it to keep us safe. Any of you that wear the uniform and serve this system, you do a lot of good work every day. But those above you, those that run the system, they know full well what they're doing. I mean, I've interviewed the former head of the depleted uranium weapons program, Dr. Doug Rocky, Dr. DU. They knew in the 70s how deadly DU was. Their own Army manuals in the 90s said it was completely devastating and would kill anybody that used it. It would take a few decades to kill them. But now they just serve it out to all the troops and say, no health problems, don't worry about it. They are normalizing this program of extermination and control. They are doing this out in the open. They're admitting, yeah, we ship in the drugs. Yeah, we run the terrorists. Yeah, we stage terror attacks. Yeah, we're poisoning your food and water. And we're sorry, like Hillary Clinton said 2 weeks ago with the syphilis. We're sorry. They're only sorry they got caught. So I'm going to ask you a question right now. Is it negative that I have published and linked to more than 20 Rockefeller Foundation documents where they admit they weaponize your vaccines to soft kill you and your family? Is it negative to admit something that's already happening, or is it positive to expose these people? Positive! If I was to fall off this stage and get a compound fracture and break my leg, would it be positive, like all these faith healer preachers say, to just say my leg's healed? Or would it be positive to actually go get my leg fixed? Okay? Knowing the problem is half the battle. You know, you see that Pentagon propaganda cartoon, but it actually takes an old Special Forces term from World War II with the airborne, that knowing is half the battle. Look, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here to tell you what I've discovered, and you can check it all for yourself. And once you know that all is not well, once you know there's something rotten in the state of Denmark, the corruption is so limitless, I invite you to go discover it yourself. I invite you, if you've got the will and the courage, to go look at it for yourself. And then to decide what you are going to do about it, because it is a bottomless pit of evil. I am almost afraid to continue researching. I am almost afraid to continue looking into this information, because I've done a test. I can sit there at my house at midnight in front of my computer, and I can sickeningly envision the most evil thing I can imagine. And out of 6.5 billion people and governments, I can search that term and find it worse than I even envisioned. You understand that? The most horrible things you can imagine these people are doing. And they've only been able to get away with it because good people that want to help the old lady next door, who want to do good in business, who want to be fair, who enjoy being wholesome, we're seen as weak and stupid by these controllers. We're seen as chumps, as schmucks to be controlled by them. And it's time that good people realize just how bad some people are and get wise to it and take these people down. We can do it together. Now, I've only covered one page and I got 3 more. Seriously, listen. I told them I was going to speak about 2.5 hours. They said, oh, we're here for 4 hours. Do you guys want me to go to question and answer, or do you want to go for another hour? Keep going? All right. I think I hear about 790 keep going, about 10 go to questions. I tell you what, we'll make a compromise here. I will go for 30 more minutes, and then I'll take about 30 minutes of questions. How's that sound? Maybe an hour. Maybe an hour. Look, you've all got to ask yourself the question. A lot of you have done your own research. A lot of people listen to my show. They take my challenge to check stuff out. They think I'm a kook. Then they go do the research and they go, oh my goodness, this guy wasn't joking around. The costs are so high that I just want to, before I get into this other information, I want to do what I've been doing all night. I want to challenge you again to realize just how special and important every single human life is, and just how beautiful and wonderful each individual is. From birth, we are set in front of televisions in our crack-filled diapers to basically be dumbed down and to be put into a state of fear and to be taught how worthless we are. Why do you think the social engineers teach you you're worthless? Because they know the truth. They're scared of you. A lot of people think of themselves as this little measly person who's powerless. But your soul, your intellect is powerful. And a good person compared to evil, an evil person is like a chicken-necked, 1-foot-tall, wart-covered goblin compared to a 10,000-foot bronze giant.
Right.
And it's time for people to understand that and to really ask yourselves, in this limited short life we have, in this amazing blessing that is consciousness, are we going to be active participants engaging corruption? And that's what's so wonderful when I do have events like this, to actually have a chance to interface with all of you. I mean, I can feel the energy, I can feel the love, I can feel the liberty, and I can sense and feel people who aren't cowards and who are not afraid to face the facts, people that don't lie to themselves, people who are not delusional, people who don't sit there like so much of the public and think they can make their own reality and buy into whatever snake oil they want. It is so good to be here with you tonight. All right, I've got a bunch of notes here, and I'm just going to start going through these points. You know, I wrote this up at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, as I usually do when I give a speech, you know, points and issues I wanted to get into. One of the big ones is just basic control, how the globalists control us, and the process we're in right now from converting to a quasi-free society to the greatest surveillance police state society the world has ever seen. And the first big issue is they're training us that everyone is a criminal except government. Everyone has no privacy except the government and corporations. No one has any dignity but the corporations and the system. And that's a lie. And you know, things that were unthinkable 10 years ago are now out in the open. We see these TV ads all over the country about kids, tattle on your parents, spy on them, it's the right thing to do. The Boy Scouts are training to take on disgruntled veterans, isn't it great? They had a drill with the Explorer Club, the Yugen, you know, took out 10 veterans who wouldn't turn their guns in. New York Times. I mean, this type of stuff is right out there in the open. And they're taking the public, the police, everybody, and just slowly acclimating us to accept it. And, you know, I mean, I'll tell a story here in my notes. I flew in Friday night, and our plane was delayed, so I got here about 11 o'clock at night in San Francisco. And, well, first off, I was in Austin, and we get there, and I go through the checkpoint, and a couple of the TSA people are listeners, and I say, hey, how you doing? And I talk to one of them, and I say, you know, they're about to put naked body scanners in here, and the government had lied about that and said, oh, there's no radiation dangers. Now they admit there are. And, oh, we don't save the naked images. Now they go, oh, we save them all. And it's going in your courthouse. Again, just lying. I mean, if your neighbor lied to you this much, why would you trust anything they said? But government doesn't, you trust them. So I went to the TSA people. Then our plane was delayed a couple hours. So I'm sitting there, and I watched these TSA guys, 3 of them, go around to all the gates, the 4 or 5 gates where I was at. And I watched them just randomly pick out, got to be an 85-year-old woman on a walker. That's Al-Qaeda. Yeah, swab her and do all this. And then I watched them search other people, and I watched them laughing. These TSA guys, 6, 7 years ago were taking it serious. They knew this was a complete joke. I mean, they knew. They knew that there weren't any terrorists. There wasn't anybody trying to blow up the plane in Austin, Texas. They knew this was a joke. And I actually went over and talked to some of them, and they didn't know who I was that great, but they were like, yeah, we're just doing our job. But the issue is, the fact is, 5, 6 years ago, I got irritated by being searched. You know what's scary?
Mr. Stinky Feet.
Yeah, I'll tell Mr. Stinky Feet if you want. I'll tell you what's scary, is that now, even Alex Jones, who's conscious of all their manipulation. No, I'm not. I'm just like everybody else. I'm powerful, but I'm also weak. It's a mix of that. It's like walking the dog now. It's like getting the mail out of the mailbox, to take my shoes off, to take my belt off, and submit to all of this. And that's what the system's doing. It's acclimating all of us to accept the equivalent of going into gas chambers. What they do at the gas chambers, or running people into pits in Russia or Germany before they kill them. Take your shoes off, take your stuff off, take your belt off, take your valuables off, go in here. And the TSA people, they have no clue. Have they done decades of research into psychological warfare conditioning operations? They're compartmentalized. These men and women aren't bad. They're getting $15 an hour. It's just a job for them. They believe Al-Qaeda wants to kill us. They don't know it's Al-Qaeda, though more and more ask for my autograph, so they do. Literally, it happens almost every time. I could be in Montana, LA, you name it. And here they are, and they're hurting people through these systems. You're taking your shoes off, you're taking your belt off, you're answering questions, and it's always more and more and more. Oh, there was a shoe bomber, got to take your shoes off. Oh, there was an underwear bomber, we got to naked body scan you. Oh, we got to ask you these questions. And I remember already seeing what they were doing 9 years ago, but then about 2 years later, what I'd already thought, seeing total confirmation, because these criminals love to brag. I was watching Governor Ridge, the head of Homeland Security, and he was on C-SPAN, and he said, we're going to have checkpoints at malls. We're going to have them on the highways. We're going to have them to go into work. He said, we're going to search everybody, and you're going to have a national ID card to have a job, and America is going to be like one big, giant airport. This is in 2003. And he said, we're going to have TSA checkpoints on the streets of America. Now they're called Viper teams, and they're everywhere. They're in Dallas, Texas. They're in Boston. They're in Los Angeles. And they are running people through the scanners and naked body scanners. And when you think about these TSA workers, I've had radiologists on the radio show to go over what is put out by these. The fact is, it's 20 to 50 times, depending on which machine, the radiation they'd previously said. And now they've announced they have at least 500 mobile vans with private contractors, and they give them to police departments as well, driving around with powerful X-ray backscatter machines with at least 10 times the power of a chest X-ray, shooting it through our homes. Think how far America's come. That they're on the news going, yeah, there's 500 vans driving around looking through your walls. Whatever happened to the Fourth Amendment? Think about that. And that the people running those machines aren't under federal laws for radiation, like somebody who's a radiologist at a dental office or a hospital. And they've got these people sitting in these vans. They're the ones that are going to die. I mean, if you get x-rayed a few times with a van driving down the street, you're not going to, it's going to hurt you, but not that bad compared to the people who are being given a death sentence. These people running these x-ray machines at the airports, the people running the big high-powered x-ray machines driving all over our country, the 500 vans we know. And that's the methodology of the globalists. They are testing soft kill to see if they can deploy things like depleted uranium the troops are using, or Agent Orange in the 60s and 70s, to see if they can deploy these radiation systems, to see if they can get away with putting it out, it killing people, and then the media just basically says, oh, it's no big deal. Kind of like 4 years ago, Gardasil supposedly protects women from human papillomavirus. But you read the insert, boy, you find out a lot reading vaccine inserts. I recommend you read it. And it said, this doesn't protect you from human papillomavirus or cervical cancer. And it only covers 4 to 6 of the hundreds of strains. But in studies and in trials, it does kill some people. And in the trials, all these women died. And then I see the local newscast all over the country, people send me on YouTube, where my daughter was a 12-year-old cheerleader. We gave her the shot, and for 4 days, blood poured out of every orifice, and she died. And the doctors say, yeah, the shot kills you, but it's worth it because it might save somebody from cancer. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Salk was the head of the World Eugenics Society. We've got videos of him laughing about the SV40 cancer viruses on record they put in polio shots. There's a reason cancer's up by over 2,000 to 3,000%. And all we got to do is face the horror that they're doing this to us. And then we've got to face the horror that Bill Gates, whose dad headed up Planned Parenthood, the eugenicist, is on record getting up on TED TV and saying, here's the equation, we got to cut the human carbon footprint, we got to get rid of most of the people. And we've got to face the horror that he's funding vaccine programs worldwide that is doing this to people. And we've got to stand up to this little smiley-faced demon when the media talks about what a great humanitarian he is and how much he cares about us, and recognize that he's a little Adolf Hitler. Hey, I'm going to say this again. I don't care at the end of the day if somebody kills me, except I want to continue my work. I am way beyond fear. Because when you actually dig into the confirmed, I mean, everything I told you here, you can just search the term and see videos of them admitting it. That's how bold they are. When you realize that what I've told you is the truth and beyond, it's worse than I'm saying, many-fold, by many levels. When you realize that eugenics started in England, became all-powerful in the United States. In 35 states, they sterilized whoever they wanted, even into the 1980s. They took babies at birth that were born in government institutions and drowned them, or did medical experiments on them. It's all public. When you realize that, you understand just how out of control this system is. And it doesn't matter if you're a school teacher or in the military or a police officer or anybody else. You are a piece of trash to the globalist. And I know there are people here that are doubters tonight. There are undoubtedly FBI people here tonight. There are undoubtedly private contractors here tonight. And all I ask is that you have the courage to go search the terms and the information I put out tonight and to find out it's true. Yeah. But I want to briefly speak about Eric Blair, a.k.a. George Orwell, because Eric Blair came from an elite family, an intellectual family in England. He was sent as a young man to India to be a part of the imperial police, suppressing hundreds of millions of Indians, just a few thousand British. And he was sent there, and he didn't like the immoral things he did to Indians in India. So he said, well, the communists are against this. So he went and joined the communists and fought in the Spanish Civil War. Then he found out how corrupt they were, so he wanted to fight Hitler. So he went to work as a propagandist for the BBC during World War II. And so his character in 1984 is Winston Smith.
He's the guy from Ministry of Truth. And Orwell talked about this. He wrote essays on it. I'm not telling you what he thought his book was about. I'm telling you what he said about it. And at the BBC, he discovered that Hitler had been funded by the British and the U.S. government. Hitler didn't work for the U.S. and British government. He'd been funded. These guys are smart. They had set up an enemy to then build up their power structure against him and to take control. And George Orwell talked about crime stop. Crime stop. The term doublethink and all the rest of it. But the crime stop was, he was in the party. 90% of the population of Airstrip 1, this fictitious 1984 Anglo-American tyranny. And Orwell wrote later that he believed this is what was actually going to happen. It just happened a little bit late. And he wrote in the book about Crime Stop, where members of the secret police, members of the propaganda corps, when Big Brother would get up there and announce, we've always been at war with East Asia, and then the next day, Big Brother would say, we've never been at war with East Asia. It was the smartest people, not the dumbest, but the smartest, who knew how to flip it around in their mind, who knew how to make excuses for it. Oh, well, he said we were always at war with East Asia, but now we've never been at war with East Asia. It was the mark of an inter-party member that they were able to rationalize what they were doing. And I've had special forces commanders on, I've had former top CIA analysts on, I've had former heads of state on, and when you confront them with, well, it's on the news, our government grows the opium, and they say, well, I just can't face that. I know it's true, but I just can't face that. Well, Anwar al-Awlaki, when I had Colonel Anthony Schaefer on Friday, I said, well, Anwar al-Awlaki, number one in Al-Qaeda right now, he's in secret Pentagon meetings, and he runs all the attacks, and it's clear the Pentagon's staging these attacks, and the Pentagon, you admit, blocked you from killing bin Laden back in 2001, a month before. He says, yeah, I know how it looks, but I just can't believe that. See, that's the key. I have told you on Infowars.com, we have direct links to the Rockefeller Foundation, direct links to the 1996 United Nations Biological Diversity Assessment, direct links to reports by the State Department, Memorandum 200. Thousands of them. It's just all there. You can read for years and never stop. I'm just wallowing in it. What the hell are we doing? What is the point? Get me off this roller coaster. Stop it. Stop it. It's real. It's real. It's real. It's so real, it's past even understanding. Because we cannot recognize evil. Because we've been trained from birth to rationalize and engage in crime stuff. We cannot face reality. But George Orwell, Eric Blair, pen name George Orwell, who had been on the imperial side, the communist side, the British propaganda side, he understood it. And what does his book talk about? Black helicopters looking through your walls with x-rays. Telescreens that watch your every move. Children being trained to spy and tattle on their parents. The language being reduced and destroyed. And then you learn that Eric Blair, his family, was married into the Wedgwoods, the Huxleys, the Darwins, and this group of people that developed everything that we are now living under today. They had the vision, and they knew what they were doing. And I'll tell you about somebody else. Aldous Huxley. 1932. He writes a book about the government dumbing children down at birth with chemicals in their food. He writes a book about genetic dictatorship through DNA, supposedly 15 years before they discovered DNA. But he even described the double helix. They discovered DNA a long time before they told you. They discovered atomic weapons a long time before Max Planck published his book. The truth is, we don't know exactly what's going on. As far as I've gone in research, it's just what's admitted. Can you imagine what else is going on? The history we've been given, everything. you've got to question it. And the system will also sow dissent. It will try to confuse you. It'll try to tell you you don't have any personal power. At the end of the day, you have that guiding light in your soul, your intellect, your spirit, and you know individually you're a good man, you're a good woman, you're a good person, you want good things for people, you're not a control freak, you don't like pain, you don't like suffering, you like a fat little chihuahua sitting in your lap, you like being nice to your neighbor. You know you're a good person, and it is your responsibility to be a leader and to carry on for those that came before you, like Dr. Stan Monteith. I don't know if he's still here tonight. I talk about this more and more because something genetic happens, something in your coding happens when you have children. That's when you really begin yourself dying.
Amen.
That's when you have a love so deep. My love for my children blows away my love for my parents, and I love my parents so much. My love for my children, my wife, can't even compare. And she agrees, she's the same way. Because that's humanity, that's the future. When you look at a little 2-year-old boy or girl full of light and love and discovery, and you see the electric power in their eyes, and you realize how wondrous they are, and you think about how the globalists want to destroy them and fill them full of evil with all their culture of death, then there's no more fear. There's no more fear. At the moment you realize that the greatest expression of the human spirit is what Jesus Christ talked about, laying your life down for another. The globalists, they have all these magazines, Self and Me and all this other stuff. When they sell you on being self-centered, they train these foolish people that that's how you get ahead, and cheating people is fun. But when you create a culture where everybody else is doing it, there's no solace, there's no safe house, there's no honor, there's no trust. I mean, wealth is people you can trust and love. Wealth is family. Wealth is friends. Wealth are those people you can count on. True wealth is fidelity. True wealth is family. True wealth is friendship. That's all there is. Everything else is going to pass away. There's an old Norse saying that cattle die and kinsmen die, but I know there's one thing that never dies, and that's the fame of a dead man's deeds. But it's more than that. It good deeds. Because the people that did bad deeds, they're remembered in a bad way. But it isn't just being remembered. It's that people that come after you will use you as an example and as a model to do the right thing as well. People need those examples. They need those models to expand and build upon the good that came before us. As I started this talk, talking about the people going back 50 years ago that went through all sorts of persecution. It's easy to be Alex Jones today, despite the threats and the attacks and the demonization by the media and the think tanks and the government. It's easy. Because I can go anywhere I want and speak to thousands of people. I can see the rising tide of the awakening and all the good things that are happening. Imagine being people 50 years ago who did the original research that's brought us to where we are, when people were so gullible because they were so good, they couldn't believe evil. Think about the persecution that folks have gone through to bring us this information, to bring us to the point we are today. This is a long fight. And we're not going to have immediate success at every level right away. It takes time. The globalists built this tyranny over a long period. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. And it is going to take us a long time to reconstruct it. And we have to be careful that in the process of pulling down this tyranny, we don't set up new forms of tyranny in its place. That's why I'm against violent revolution. At a very primitive level, it's something that's very inviting. It's something that seems immediate and simple. But our enemies are planning on that. They're hoping we engage in violence. They're hoping that we take up arms. They're hoping to make war against
pre-humanity. Instead of us becoming brothers and sisters with their would-be enforcers, instead of us in good, decent, honest communion with their would-be servants, instead of us unlocking their servants' minds, they hope that we are in war with them to wipe them out so a new, more vicious group can be brought in. And that's the secret. It takes a lot more courage to let somebody attack you than to even stand up against them. And I'm all for defense, but offensive attacks are the work of the globalists. They are the people that attack. They are the people that invade. They are the people that preempt. You never attack. You only defend. And the pen is mightier than the sword. But that doesn't mean there's not a time to physically defend yourself. And we should make preparations for that as well. Because, as the founder of the Texas Rangers said, no man in the wrong can stand up against a man in the right who keeps on a-coming. And that's the secret. Keep on a-coming. Realize that every little thing you do, that act of goodness, that act of doing right, that it's literally a spiritual thing. That act of not caring what people think or say about you, that act of being strong, of being bold, of standing up to evil, that literally is an example to others, and it sends out reverberations like a rock in a pond that never stop, that never end. Make no mistake, what we talk about and discuss here today will have reverberations for thousands of years into the future. All right, running through all these points. Gosh, I write these down and it just gives me a headache to even look at them. Let's briefly talk about what our world will become if they win. And I know they're not going to succeed. But if you read their writings, what will the world look like if they succeed? Our entire planet will be a giant graveyard of the billions and billions of people that they killed through war, through famine, through half your block having cancer. But don't worry, they have a fundraiser for that. Everybody gets to be part of a club and be like a movie star. Oh, you're dying. No, give some money to the cancer research group. We'll take care of it for you. They turn everything into a pageant, into a play, into some type of sick celebrity. If we don't defeat them, this is what the globalists say they're going to do. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's what they want. They're going to merge with computers. So in some delusional fashion, they say, we'll live forever because our intellects will be downloaded in a computer. Again, I don't know if that's real. That's what they say they're doing. These people are nuts. And we're not going to be here, and their progeny are going to go forward. And in every writing they put out, whether it's Kurzweil, you name it, they talk about how they don't care what we say, they don't care what we do, they're just going to do it and we can't stop them. But that's a con game. I can't tell you how many times I've confronted world leaders or others that I and others have inspired, like We Are Change, and the things they've done. When you confront a David Rockefeller or a Ted Turner or a Bill Clinton or a George W. Bush or a Joe Biden or a Barack Obama or a Hillary Clinton, when you confront them calmly and in a focused way, they are horrified. They are scared because they know that humanity is awake and staring at them. Yes. But if they succeed, if they have their way, it's just too horrible to imagine. You know, I hate to go back to Hitler because that's a very sad and sickening subject in human history because it was so cold and scientific what they did. But it all came from the United States and England, on record. And they got embarrassed by Hitler.
and they packaged it in a liberal packaging. Margaret Sanger gave awards to Hitler, got awards from him. She's been Time Magazine Woman of the Year. They still honor her. This is a woman that called black people subhuman weeds. And where's Jesse Jackson? You got a woman being praised that calls black people subhuman weeds, but then they all obsess over race issues and get everybody hyped up about it, only to fight with each other. That's an example of what we're talking about. These are monstrous, monstrous people. And I just want to tell people, a real Nazi, that's the best way to describe a eugenicist in a popular term. It's well known. The best way to describe a Nazi is not your loving liberal down the street that's feeding the homeless and cares about the environment. They're useful idiots, just like most Tea Party people are, who support mainline Republicans. They mean well. But when you get down to a foundation liberal, a Rockefeller Foundation, a high-level NPR person, if you really talk to them, or you really read their writings, they are human-hating, jealous, envious scum. And when they go to the park and they look at people, they are disgusted. They hate children, they hate women, they hate so-called minorities, they hate everybody. And they hate you so much that they're not going to wear a Ku Klux Klan outfit and saddle up next to you calling you the N-word. They're going to tell you they got a community van coming by with vaccines. You need to understand that. They hate you so much. And by the way, they're not just killing people that got brown skin. They hate everybody. Another facet of eugenics we talked about earlier is that they call it positive and negative eugenics. That's in the lower level writings. Like, we're going to breed the elites together for longer longevity, better looks, everything else, and we're going to kind of kill off the dumb people. That's evil. But when you really read high level eugenics, they say, actually, our main mission is to kill the best and brightest because they'll compete with us. Think about that. For all you out there, well, I got 140 IQ, I'm successful. I talk to a lot of so-called liberals. They go, well, Alex, there are too many people. Like they're part of the system. I was like, yeah, I noticed you're 35 years old. You and your wife are trying to have a kid for 5 years. Who listens to all this propaganda about not having children? It's the best and brightest. See, they'll kill off the poor and the people they think are, quote, subhumans later. The real people they want to kill, the real apple of their eye they want to dumb down, are people that come from good families. You can be black, you can be Indian, you can be white, you can be Jewish, you can be German, they don't care. They are chronicling in the schools through computerized actuaries. The teacher doesn't even know what they're looking at. Oh, that little boy there, he's a leader. He raises his hand too much. He won't shut up. We don't let him play dodgeball to get out of his energies anymore. So he jumps around, and we're giving him all this Coke and all these sugar drinks. We won't get him off sugar drinks, all this unhealthy stuff. We're just going to put you on Adderall that shrinks the size of your brain, swells your heart, and retards your growth, and will lower your IQ. We're going to give you Ritalin, son. They target, and I've had the former head of policy in the Department of Education on, who released thousands of pages and put a book out, Liver Dumbing Down, Charlotte Iserby, where she was openly in meetings in the 80s, where they talked about, we've got to target men, leader men, and we've got to dumb the hell out of them. Because we're not going to be able to get this operation through if we do that. And that's another point I want to make about feminism. There have been ancient cultures of suppression. There have been many forms of tyranny. And there have been many systems run by tyrannical women and many systems run by tyrannical men. But at the end of the equation, you have to realize that a man is not the human species. A woman is not the human species. The man and the woman form to make our species. Just like the DNA is intertwined, men and women are intertwined. And the minute that they can break that bond between men and women, the minute they can train us to fight with each other, because the women have been trained to be floozies, the men have been trained to be lazy, sports addict scum. They've already fried our economy. They've already fried our society. They've already screwed us up really bad, but don't worry, they've always got the answer to fix it. And that's break up the family more. They want to isolate all of us. Families aren't perfect. There's a lot of problems out there. But at the end of the day, the globalist family is scientifically coming after our individual human family so they can corner us. So they can corner us by ourselves. If you go back 5, 6,000, 7,000, 10,000 years ago to humans anywhere in the world, cornered, surrounded by wild animals in the night, but together they had strength. But if you were a cave bear or that saber-toothed cat I was talking about, if you could get a human, the strongest male and the weakest child, if you could get them alone, what's going to happen? Dinner time. Dinner time. So you better find some family, even if it's not your genetic family. You better find people that have the same mindset, the same understanding, the same spirit. You better get with people, and because that's the most valuable thing going into this contrived, controlled depression, is to have people you can count on who are of the same mind and accord, who will stand together against this evil. That is the most important thing. And that's why they divide us on sex, they divide us on race, they divide us on religion, they divide us on every front so we can be isolated and controlled by this system. But it is through unity against their tyranny that we have victory. They atomize. They divide and conquer our society and then go, oh, look at all this disunity. We've got unity. You didn't have a daddy at home? Join the big gang in the sky, the military. Join the big gang in the sky, the police. We'll give you a gang mentality. Police will read the gang handbook. Shut up, look at yourself. This is how they set it up. You didn't have a daddy at home? Now you're going to have a daddy. He's your sergeant. But this daddy's going to tell you that putting uranium's good for you. This daddy's going to tell you vaccines full of poisons are good. This daddy is going to tell you having biological weapons tested on you is good. Because this daddy's dumbed down and ignorant too. But the big daddies up on top, they know exactly what they're doing. So the state destroys our culture, destroys our humanity, removes the basic moorings of what it is to be a human, and the basic rituals and rites that we all want to go through. They destroy all those rites in their natural position in our local area, in our family, and they give us false rites, false rituals of being a human. And they take us through those false rituals, and people are given a false counterfeit fulfillment. Is this making sense? But it doesn't matter if you don't have a family. It doesn't even matter if you don't have friends. You've got the instincts, you've got the guts, you've got the hard wiring that God put into you, and you've got a family of billions of our ancestors that go before us and billions of our progeny that go after us. And in that, you have unlimited strength the minute you tap into it. So the globalists are on their ultimate power trip, and they think they've got it all won. But now we see fear in their eyes. Not just fear of us, though. I've talked to some very high-level globalists off the record. People say, well, tell us who they are. Well, if I did that, I would break my journalistic code if somebody says this is off the record. That's why they talk to me. The police send me secret government documents where they're trying to confiscate our guns, and I put it out in the next national news. People say, well, tell us your source, even after it's admitted to be real documents. Oh, yeah, tell me. I'll tell you the source so they never talk to me again. Yeah, I'll blow my confidence and my integrity for you. That's another line. But I've talked to people at some of the highest levels. I mean, an example is Rothkopf. This is on record, so I can talk about it. The former head of the Kissinger Group. I got a call from his office about 3 years ago. He didn't come back on after one visit, I'll tell you. And he came on to explain to me how world government was good, and how there's 6,000 global managers for the elite. Now they have the whole plan, and I should join with it. And he was giving me this great opportunity. This is on air. This is on air. Don't you want power? You know, because we're not perfect, but we're the best there is. If you ever try to enlighten this rabble, they won't know what to do. You know, you're smart. You see what's going on. You ought to be with us. You ought to have disdain for the general public. And that's basically was his message. And now I talk to people, and I talk to others that know, folks at the highest levels. I talked to a medical doctor who's treated several heads of state. And let me tell you something, as they arrive at their final agenda, as they come to the edge of the cliff, as they get up there looking at the plunge they're about to take, like they're up on a 300-foot railroad trestle above a river, as they look down on what they're about to do, the globalists are not so much freaked out about us waking up. Because even though we've been dumbed down, we have an instinct that we're in danger. They tell you, you're freaked out inside because guys in turbans. We're like, no, we're freaked out because of you. Our God knows that. But the globalists aren't so much freaked out about us. They are to a certain extent, but we're a side issue to a certain extent. They're freaked out by their own agenda. They've schemed this, they've planned this, they've gotten all the way up to this point. And now, they're about to take the plunge. All of the millions and millions killed with the soft kill weapons, all the wars, the million dead Iraqis, the DU, let's give it to the troops, let's have them use it. We'll test and see if it comes out, we're killing them. We'll give them the H1N1 and kill and maim all these people. And so what if it happened last year and they got exposed? We'll do it again this year. So what if the British Medical Journal comes out? A lot of them put themselves on the line to go public. So what if even the EU Health Commission and Wolfgang Woodard, the doctor, goes public? So what if it comes out it's deadly? We just got to start testing it. We've got to start doing it. And a lot of their own people are saying, you mean this isn't to save the earth? It's eco-fascism? You want to kill everybody? You're putting ads on TV showing children being murdered for the earth? You mean we're really going to do this? I don't think I feel so safe being with you people. I kind of like, going to the Hollywood meetings and being cool. I kind of like big cities full of people. I kind of like the way things are. But the higher level Luciferians above them are saying, this program is inalterable. Full steam ahead. Hey, I see Sheriff Mack over there. You have no stick to that? A lot of surprise guests. I wonder if folks are going to get Dr. Stan Monteith and Sheriff Richard Mack and others. But will you come speak in a minute? Sure. Okay, yeah, I want you to, absolutely. Hey, it's great. I come out to Santa Cruz, Dr. Stan Monteith, Sheriff Richard Mack. But again, going back to an example, instead of getting all this super deep stuff, just a basic thing of an example of what one man on the right can do when he keeps on coming. Sheriff Richard Mack, I don't know, 15 years ago, wherever it was, they were having gun cases where they were taking people's guns who hadn't even committed a crime. He went all the way to the Supreme Court and won. It was a landmark case. And Sheriff Richard Mack did that. And, since then, he's been on my show many times. He has a best-selling book that is, instead of fighting with police, we're going to them and saying, do you want to be part of the sacred honor and true duty to defend the Republic? Going to sheriffs, going to others and saying, here is your oath. Here's what it's really all about. You represent the people. You represent the county. You don't represent the offshore banks that have taken over our nation. And just the work he's done from 10, 15 years ago, talking to crowds of 20 people and talking to crowds of 3, 4, 5,000 or more, to having a huge effect and having police 10 years ago in Austin giving me dirty looks to every time I'm in Austin, even when I'm being bad and speeding. They probably shouldn't, but they let me off for it. So it's not good. To having police try to buy me dinner when I'm in restaurants and come up and shake my hand. Again, a lot of that is because of oath keepers, people like Sheriff Richard Mack and others that have really tried to. Because at the end of the day, that's the illusion. The police are with us, the people, even if they've been lied to and somehow think of themselves as part of the system. The system is going to take their pension funds, just like what's happening in Europe right now. The system doesn't give a damn about them. The system's going to hang them out to dry the minute it can. Only when the police stand with the people and the elected representatives of this republic are they peace officers and defenders of the republic. We're going to do 30 minutes of questions now, and I kind of like this down here with everybody. This is awesome. And again, I want to just thank all the security. Let's get a question from this lady right here. Ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that the USA is planning to expand their warfare testing in the Pacific Ocean. They're talking about taking, which means to kill, capture, harass 32 species of marine mammals, plus using depleted uranium and other chemicals. And I was wondering if you could explain what the military is with these types of programs, plus the geoengineering chemtrail programs with the Air Force are all tied in to what you were talking about tonight.
Well, wonderful set of questions, and I could have spoken all night just on those three questions. Of all those issues, probably the least harmful, but it's horrible, but comparatively it's not as big as geoengineering and DU, is the fact that they're testing in the last decade high-powered sonar systems that can be heard throughout the entire ocean. Of course, sound travels at one speed in the atmosphere and another in the water, and every time the Navy tests these, whales en masse beach themselves, other marine mammals, and it just shows they'll give the troops DU to use as a weapon that ends up killing them over time, and they don't care if they're doing these sonar tests that end up killing whales. On the subject of geoengineering, chemtrails as they're known, I remember the old timers 15 years ago saying the government spraying barium, sulfur, dioxide, sulfur, and now the White House science czars come out and said basically they're playing God and that they're doing all these different tests, and it just shows how these people think they're God, and they can create environmental disasters, weather disasters, and then promote that as a pretext to bring more control in over the internet and more control over the environment, more control with carbon taxes. So weather weapons are quite real, and I've interviewed Ben Livingston, the former head of the Pentagon's weather weapons program. Let's go to a question over here. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my name's Dale. I grew up in this area, and as I understand, I could have it wrong, but Santa Cruz was one of the main starting beds for Agenda 21.
Yeah.
So this is it.
Yeah, that's just like San Francisco's where the UN was created, yeah.
Right. I find it ironic that you're here, so they call this God sense of humor. So, whatever the case.
Well, for every action, there's an equal reaction.
So, what we're up against is we're up against multi-generational organized evil.
Yes. That's a good way of putting it. Multi-generational organized evil. I'm going to steal that term. No, I think we've said it in other ways, but it's very well said, sir.
Sure. Keep it simple. So, a lot of you people have seen some pamphlets on it. It's one form of organization, but we need to work from a position of integrity, of not pushing somebody down, but offering guidelines. So I'm back from Russia, 4 years in Russia, and I know what's coming. I've lived it, okay? And it's just a super festive form of communism. But what I'm inviting, what I want to ask is how can we work with InfoWars, with you, because you're the point on the sphere, all right? So there you go.
Well, thank you, sir. God bless you. Look, I am part of the tip of the spear, as all of you are. I'm just trying to organize and run my operation, and hell, I'm some guy that has trouble balancing my checkbook. So, when it comes to actual, listen, what makes us so hard to stop is that we are unorganized. And if we all just take back our counties and our cities and our states, and if we inform people about Agenda 21 and the globalist plan, it's going to fall like a house of cards. As all of you resist in little ways every day, mainly by informing others, it's unstoppable. But God bless you. Keep up the great work, sir. Go ahead.
Hi. The other day you had a guest on your show by the name of Lindsey Williams.
Yes.
And he mentioned that someone he knew, he didn't mention the name, had dinner with Janet Napolitano of Homeland Security, and that she had specifically told this anonymous person that to go home immediately and prepare 6 months of food and water for her family. I just wanted to know what you think about that.
Well, I know who Lindsey Williams was talking about. I separately knew about the person and asked him if that was her, and he said yes. And I believe Lindsey, does talk to these sources and say that. But, just like the feds early last year, in January, were telling emergency managers and police heads all over the country that the flu was going to kill millions before it popped up. They tend to use fear on, this lady's also an elected representative you're talking about. They use fear to kind of get them to go along with it. Like there's been over 100 that we know of staged terror attacks in the United States in the last 9 years that were never announced on the news.
but police are given quiet national security clearances so they can't go talk about it, not because it's really classified, but because it's baloney. Kind of like they're giving national security clearances right now to all the TSA workers. That's so they can keep secret really what they're doing and you know, the abuse, and so the TSA workers can't complain about, you know, being screwed around and things. Now that said, I'm not saying we couldn't start a war with Iran or the economy may not go into depression. It's just the feds are constantly running around, you know, telling people this is going to happen, that's going to happen, as a way to use crisis to get people to go along with them. So I don't doubt that lady told Lindsey Williams that. I just have seen the feds use, and they're not even feds, you know, global manipulators, using stage crises to get people to go along with them. The crisis is here. You know, the tyranny is here. The looting is here. The depression is here. And so don't look for some big announcement to come. It's just going to be a slow slide into it. They may stage something down the road, other key events, we know they do that. It's just generally when they tell you something's going to happen, it doesn't happen. When you can tell they're going to do something is when you see the preconditioning on the news. That's when you got to worry. And we are hurtling towards some major stage crises. I just don't know about, you know, getting ready for some, you know, huge implosion next week. That's a great question. Let's go ahead and go to you, sir. Go ahead.
Eric from Salt Lake City. CAFR, I don't hear much about it anymore. Can you briefly summarize what happened to the CAFR, which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports that we have?
Sure, Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. I had Walter Buren on just a few months ago, one of the people exposing it. Anybody can just search their local county, city, school district, water district, power district, Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. When you hear about budgets in government, you're only hearing about the money that's actually being spent on local services. You're not hearing generally about 2/3 of the money being invested off the books. So it's like a mafia second set of books. And governments have become fabulously wealthy, and the private individuals, city managers and others that ran that would then be given payoffs and jobs later to go along with it. But through the derivative scam, the globalists have stolen most of that money and are now shutting down city governments or curtailing them and then putting them under pressure to follow federal guidelines or to get federal funds. So it's just basically a giant scam. But the governments have giant slush funds the public hasn't been told about. Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. I put a documentary out on that subject. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to, Alex, I cannot listen to all your broadcasts. And so I may be repeating something, but one of the issues I would really love to see you cover more is the electronic voting machines, because you get good candidates on and people call in, and we just heard about Shalene. But unless we really address who's counting the votes and how they're being counted, and there's some great researchers out there, and I'd love to hear them on your show.
Well, I've had Bev Harris on probably 30 times.
I missed it.
Yeah, you know, but I go through guests in phases, and I do have a blind spot. When I've covered something 100 times, I tend to, about a year or two ago, I realized I haven't covered fluoride in a couple of years because I've probably done 100 shows on it. I better do it again because the audience is a lot larger and more diverse. But there is a lot of electronic voting machine fraud, and they do use it in key races, and it's Republicans are cheated, Democrats are cheated. It's mainly used to keep third-party and alternative candidates out. And they've had major executives of these companies go public and say it's all a fraud, and they die in plane crashes or shoot themselves in the head. So yeah, I mean, if they'll shoot up, you know, people in the U.S. and children in Guatemala with syphilis, and they'll radiate foster kids to death in this country on record, I mean, of course they'll steal elections, but that's a great point. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. In recent months on your show, you've talked about going to the stars and how much of the aviation and technology that is in the public domain is 30 to 40 years behind the state of the art. Another individual who has examined this topic in great detail is Dr. Stephen Greer. And my question is, what is the intersection of your research and Dr. Stephen Greer's regarding those advances in energy, propulsion, and aviation?
Well, thank you. I should probably interview Dr. Stephen Greer. I haven't. I'm a little bit familiar with his work. I just know the government says that a plane in service in 1955 the SR-71 Blackbird's the fastest aircraft we have. I know that they had the B-2 bomber for 20 years before they unveiled it. I know that the technology we're given is basically obsolete. A lot of people speculate, and it gets into some wild stuff. I don't know. I mean, I can't get a lot of the public to admit that there's the Emergency Centers Act for FEMA camps for the American people. I mean, it's on record, it's mainstream news, FEMA camps, and I can't get people to admit that. So I don't really, get off into speculation about exactly what all this advanced technology is. I just know top globalist thinkers write books and chortle about it all and talk about all the things they're given, that they're privy to, but then they don't basically tell us. My issue is a lot is going on we don't know about, and we need to know about that. We need to start finding out about that and have more people leak information concerning that. But there have been hundreds of trillions of dollars in the last 60, 70 years in the aggregate stolen as part of black budget programs. I mean, hammers are not costing $700 at the Pentagon. And all of that money's not being stolen. It's being put into secret programs, like the underground base program and the things we know exist. All right, we got about 15 minutes left. Let's accelerate through your great questions. Go ahead, sir.
Alex, I appreciate when you have guests talk about the Federal Reserve, the economy, and the constitutional issues. I have not heard you talk about the book, They Own It All, Including You, by Virtue of Toxic Currency, which was written by Ronald McDonald, not the hamburger clown, Ronald McDonald and Dr. Robert Brogan. I would love to actually hear you have them on as guests. I did give a copy of the book to Ted Anderson earlier for you. I would hope that you could please take a look at it.
Well, I would love to meet Ronald McDonald. So
he doesn't dress in the hamburger suit. He's a real person.
Hey, I know they own it all, including us, but I'm telling them they may have gotten it through fraud, but they don't own me. There's a gremlin here. Hey, I talk bad about Ronald McDonald, and look at what happened. Ronald McDonald in the sky, running satellites. No, it sounds interesting, sir. Sounds interesting. Go ahead.
Just want to say, drove 6 hours, come to see you the first time I've ever seen you live there. I don't get KCO, but I have that iPhone app that's best free thing about that phone. But anyways, so great job you making that one. And the fact that I can come here for $10.80, thank you guys. That's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you why KSCO is so good. It's an independent station owned by an independent guy, Michael Zwirling, who when he was in high school was on the radio station. It's one of the only stations in the country, I just got a tour of it, actually built according to RCA specifications to be a real radio studio. They usually stick radio stations in, something wasn't built for it. It's an amazing place, and it's privately owned, it's individually owned, he owns 2 radio stations, and that's what America needs to get back to, not 2 or 3 giant corporations owning it. More radio stations would be like KSCO if we didn't have these big transnationals owning it and controlling it. The airwaves do belong to the people. And I believe in private property, and I believe in individuals owning groups of stations. Go ahead.
I'm the proud father of a 1-year-old little girl, and I'm proud to say that I haven't given her 1 vaccine.
I haven't vaccinated mine either, brother.
And apparently you've never given her any. Now this question is from my mother-in-law, who's an avid listener of Alex Jones. I texted her during the message earlier, and I was drawing a blank, so this is from her. Is there any protection against HARP mind control, and what can we do not to be controlled?
Okay, HARP is highly classified, and I've actually got the director of HARP on. It was like 3 years ago. I got a call from the Pentagon. The director of HARP would like to come on your show. You can just search Alex Jones interviews director of HARP, and they had this this Air Force colonel on during the breaks, telling him what he could and couldn't say, and I was like, well, you guys wanted to come on this show, and I still don't know why, but that was before Jesse went up there, but he starts talking about, we even ignite the atmosphere on fire some evenings. and they cut him off, and at break, the colonel comes on and says, you can't get into that. As for mind control, DARPA that invented the internet wasn't Al Gore, folks. He's a fraud. It's admitted he didn't invent it. He guy's a lunatic. Man, bear, pig. But to make a long story short, DARPA, it had to be like in '99, it was in the Baltimore Sun, said, yes, because they put these trial balloons out. Yes, we are testing antenna arrays in major cities during crises to calm the public with these magnetic frequency systems they've tested on rodents and other things. That's all patented. So you do have stuff in the literature by them where they talk about how they're going to help us. We're already in so much frequency pollution. That's the great thing about humans. If you think cockroaches become immune to poison in a couple generations, what about us? I think we're a lot tougher than the mighty cockroach. So, and when you're aware that you're powerful, it doesn't matter how much mind control there is, you're going to beat it. Okay, because the globalists got to live in this system they've created themselves. So, yeah, there is a lot of frequency manipulation going on, and a lot of it is admitted. And I've seen a lot of stuff about HARP, you know, up in Alaska engaged in mind control. And I think it's more of a weather modification / over-the-horizon radar system. But HARP is only one of many arrays, and it's a really good question. Go ahead.
My name is Thor Monterey. I'm involved with a local group that's trying to stop PG&E from installing smart meters.
Hey, that was in my speech. I never got to it. That was in my speech. I never got to it.
I'd like to see you just comment on, there's a lot of concerns about privacy and health concerns with the smart meters. So if you can elaborate on your concerns with those, I'd really appreciate it.
You know, I sort of never got to these 4 pages. This is something I skipped on the front page. We help the system enslave us. Smart house, smart cars, smart meters, threat fusion centers, rental car place, spy at counter database, TSA secondary checks. I did cover that. School kids trained to spy, compartmentalization. I covered that stuff, but I didn't cover these 3. In fact, I started the story, and it's not really prepared, so I meandered. I talked about flying in and seeing the TSA searching everybody, and then secondary searches. But then once I landed in San Francisco, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I've been up since 5 a.m. my time. So it's like 1 a.m. my time, Austin time. I still got to drive up to Bohemian Grove, another infiltration, but that's also I narrowly made it here. Okay, the other people got arrested, and I can't talk about it right now. But the point is, well, I have my reasons. The point is, I was like an Aquaman in the river getting away. So. Anyway, I was a frog man getting out of there. But anyways, finishing the story so folks can go home. I come up to the counter before getting to smart meters and smart houses, and there's this nice 20-year-old, lady behind the counter. But she's really into how she's been trained in this corporate system. And I watch about 5 people in front of me getting rental cars. They're all exhausted, families going up. One group had kids with them. And she's like, hi, oh. And she's getting their stuff. She's like, where are you going? What you doing? She's asking me. Of course, I know under Patriot Act compliance that it's school teachers, not just cops, rental car places, banks. They're all trained to spy on you. When you go to have a baby at the hospital, they say, you got enough money? Oh, your husband's out of the room. Is he mean to you? They don't tell you they're putting it all in a database. I mean, the cops got to tell you have a right to remain silent. Anything you can and say will be used against you in a court of law. Not all the little Stasi spies they've hired. And I found, a lot of cops get on power trips out of control, but they're nothing because they're held to a higher standard compared to the general public when they give them these little Nazi powers. And so I'm there at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and she's sitting there, and I walk up, and I'm getting our rental car, and she starts asking me questions, and I just said, look, I know you're trained to ask all these questions to identify threats. Do you really think I'm a threat? And I said, listen, dear, I said,
Well, I kind of just shut up at that point. I didn't say very much to her. In fact, I was thinking of all the things I wanted to say to her, but I just shut up, and I said, and then she wanted to let me know she was the boss. I went to all this trouble to get another address of where I live on my driver's license. And it's a real address I have, but it's not where I live. And she giggled and said, and she read out my address that no one has and it's in no databases. And and I said, oh, you've got the address? She said, yeah, I just wanted you to know. And she laughed at me. See, she's got power. She knows where I live. She knows where I really live. It doesn't matter to her. People call up and threaten to murder my children and cut my wife's head off. It doesn't matter to her. She's a little Nazi. And she'll end up like Nazis at Nuremberg. Even if she doesn't get in trouble for what she's done, she'll be hurt by the system she's serving. But she wanted me to know because I got a little uppity with her. I said, I know you're doing this for a database. And she said, yeah, I got your real address. Now, that's the data mining. The rental car people and the banks have more in their computers than the cops do. Okay? You understand that? And they're training them all to spy on you, but then the head of Al-Qaeda gets to die at the Pentagon. And they tell you it's to keep you safe. It's a bunch of bull, and all of us know it, and I'm sick and tired of it. And now, I remember reading 12 years ago about how all the new appliances in the future, and now it's happening, will be controlled. Your thermostat, your refrigerator, your washing machines, all the new systems have these chips. It's controlled, and off wireless systems outside, the government controls what's happening in your house. And already in California and other areas, it's happening. They showed up a year ago at my office and said, oh, we're putting a smart meter in, you don't have a choice. And I have to know the rules, and I said, I opt out of it. And they got real mad. So see, they just show up and do this where everything in your house is being tracked. I remember 4 years ago, Google came out with a press release to stockholders. So much is in those stockholder reports. It's public, but it's not on the news. It's quasi-secret. And it was, we have a great new system. We're listening to everyone in their homes, off the microphones in their computers. It's just public. And we now have video cameras in most of the computers, and we're watching them. But don't worry, it gets around privacy rules because we have a computer doing keywords. And if we hear a dog bark, we then sell the data that they have a dog, and they get dog food commercials on the computer and on their TV, and mailed to them. And TiVo's watching you and what you're doing. Remember 6 years ago, Janet Jackson's breast popped out, and they had in the Chicago Tribune, oh, record rewinds and replays on TiVo, 2.2 million. So it's worse than 1984. Your computers have NSA dialing in and listening to you, no warrants, totally illegal. The cameras on your computers. Remember 6 months ago in Philadelphia, and then it came out in other cities. Remember, oh, the school gave free laptops to the kids. That's a lie, you paid for them through tax money. And 50-something thousand images and videos were shot of the children robing in their beds, and they even released photos of children sleeping at home. And there they were. You remember seeing this on the news? The school watching the parents and watching the kids, and the school was all there. And how did the school get caught? The school thought it was so normal, they had a TV station in to show them. Oh, look, we're watching people at their home. And a few parents weren't mind controlled and said that isn't freedom. So it's all watching you. The government is a narcotics trafficking, murdering, criminal organization. Is the average low-level person that works in the government bad? No, they're just like you. But this is an example of how
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the sites, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.